Good afternoon. I'm Robert Ruano, and I'm your host of Localized Miami here at Community Newspapers. And we have the unique pleasure of having a very special guest today, Miami-Dade County Mayor Daniella Levine Cava. Mayor, welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Nice to see
Thank you
you.
for having me. Thank you.
I've been trying for a while. I'm glad that out of everything that you have to do, you can take half an hour and come and talk to us, and hopefully a bunch of people that will be watching.
I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you.
And I was thinking, you have to remind me, I think we met. Do you remember where we went? When we met?
It's been a while.
Leadership Miami.
Oh, whoa.
It was either 2000 or 2001 when you were training, remember? Where you were doing a leader?
Yes. Well, I never participated.
Right.
But I had many years in which I was invited to come and be part of the program. So very proud of that.
Yeah, that was wonderful. Yeah. And I don't know if you remember, but I sent you, I think when you were running for commission, I sent to your office the sheet. I sent it to Sean, may rest in peace, and I'm sure he shared with you, that said Daniella Levine Cava back in 2001. Mm-hmm. And so I told him, like, well, look, so people that say she didn't use the Cava before, it was there in 2001.
Thank you for that. Thank you for your confidence. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's great to see you. So tell me a little bit about yourself. I know a little bit about your story, but why did you get into politics? I mean, why would you do that to yourself?
Indeed. Well, it was never my career goal to go into politics. I'm a lawyer and social worker by training. I was always involved in community action, advocacy, particularly focused on children and families and communities so that people could have healthy, happy, productive lives. And finally, after spending many years helping people to get access to services, helping to change policy and budget so that people could get the things they needed, it was time to go inside. I had trained people to be active as advocates, and I did not feel that the county commission at the time was responsive and not really listening to the community. So I thought it was my duty, because I could do it, to step up and run for office so that I could create a different dynamic with the public.
And that was in 2014, I believe?
Correct.
Right. And then you were, how many terms before you ran for mayor?
I served for 6 years, so a full term, was reelected, and then the race for mayor opened up because the previous mayor had termed out. Mm-hmm. So I decided it was time to step up and run countywide.
And so when is your next election?
In 70 days.
Oh, really? I knew that.
You knew that. Trick question.
I knew that. Yeah.
So August 20th is the primary for county elections. And of course, mine is a nonpartisan primary. There are a few people in the race. And if I win more than 50% of the vote, then I'll be elected in August. And if not, there'll be a runoff in November.
Okay. And I like that, the nonpartisan stuff, obviously, people are in different parties and stuff, but I was saying something I've heard from our former mayor, Manny Diaz, my former mayor, that Richard Daley used to say is that potholes are not Democrat or Republican.
Indeed.
And I love that statement because, oftentimes we get mired in national politics and ordinary people, but they don't even know who their mayor is. They don't know who their commissioner, and these people really have power over them.
Absolutely. Making the decisions that affect their lives on a daily basis.
Yeah. And to be clear, you're not the mayor of Miami.
Correct.
It's not.
Well, I tell people you have to get a PhD to really understand the jurisdictional issues here. But Miami-Dade County, which is almost 3 million people, and 34 cities are within Miami-Dade County. But among those, the city of Miami is the largest. And of course, Miami Beach, Coral Gables, South Miami, etc.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of cities. I think there's 32 or
34.
34. Okay. So tell me, I love this question. Somebody always asks us, and when we do board meetings and stuff, I'm sure you've heard it, is what keeps you up at night? It's a corny question, but I think it's important to ask you because there's, we've seen a lot of things happen in your tenure. I mean, a lot of difficult things like the tower collapse and COVID and everything that you've gone through. It's a very difficult tenure. So tell me what really concerns you,
I am 68 years old. I've been through a lot. I take everything, I wouldn't say, well, I take it calmly as best I'm able, because that's the best way to approach problem solving. Obviously, we've had many emergencies, and I am able to respond quickly and thoroughly. Um, the only thing that really is problematic for me is the need to build consensus about these difficult issues. So it isn't any particular issue that is more troubling than not. Like you say, a building collapsed. We recovered from COVID. We people can't afford to live here. The cost of housing, cost of living has gone sky high. Making sure that people are safe, that justice is done, etc., that we can deal with our garbage. So many challenges, traffic. But it isn't those problems that keep me awake. It's sometimes the difficulty of figuring out how to get people to understand what's at stake and how to move forward together.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you had a little experience of that being a commissioner for 6 years, right?
Well, I'm 68. I've done a lot of things in my life. I've had a lot of experience bringing people to the table. And that's why I call myself the collaborator in chief, because I have really over time learned how to listen, how to bring people to a common understanding and common purpose.
That's a wonderful skill. Something that I wish I had more of, I'll be honest. Yeah. So you mentioned affordable or housing. Housing has been an issue, and I wanted to ask you about that because you did an affordable housing initiative. You have a new director now. Tell me what's happening in the landscape in Miami-Dade County with housing. I mean, I hear a lot of people in the service industry, for example, that are having to move out because it's too expensive.
Yes.
So what is the county doing? Yeah. What are you doing to try to make it more affordable?
Yeah. Well, I was a housing advocate long before I even thought of running for office. So I've been working in this space a long time. But 2 years ago, I declared a housing crisis.
Right.
Because frankly, people were starting to move here. The price of housing was starting to skyrocket. Salaries were not going up to keep pace. And we were beginning to see that we're constrained. We're constrained between the ocean and the Everglades, obviously the county lines. And we just were running out of supply, and that demand with limited supply was driving up those prices. So we doubled down on building new affordable units. We've got 32,000 in the pipeline. We've been producing at about 10,000 per year. And that's not just the county, but the county has put huge resources into it. The money that we receive from the federal government for the American Rescue Plan, a good portion of that money went into housing production and also preventing evictions. We received more than our fair share, I guess I would say, of the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, a national program. And we organized ahead of time and were able to spend that money quickly to keep people in their homes. Basically, we paid landlords back rent for people who could not afford, and that, they were going to be out of a place to live, but they were able to catch up and in many instances stay put. Mm-hmm. And so we negotiated with landlords. Now we have an eviction prevention program. We hire attorneys across many different nonprofits to help our constituents to be able to maintain their housing. We've also increased our subsidies for housing and created incentives for things like, we call it NOAA, Naturally Occurring Affordable Housing.
Oh, I know NOAA. Yeah, I like that.
So it's a great program. It's a grant. It's not even a loan to smaller multi-dwelling owners. And then in return for getting money to fix up their properties, they maintain affordability for 30 years. We also got a HUD grant. What's it called? Choice Communities Grant.
Okay.
And that helped us in Goulds to preserve naturally occurring affordable housing. And we are a finalist for another $50 million.
Wow, that's great.
Yes. And we also have used the RAD program, which is redevelopment of public housing. Mm-hmm. Public housing had been allowed to become run down. There wasn't federal money for keeping it maintained, and county funds were not utilized to maintain it. And so in several instances, we've already rebuilt, allowing the right of return for everybody. In fact, Liberty Square was an example where they were able to stay on premises if they chose or take vouchers, either way, but have a right of return as the new units were built. So in Little Havana, we have a beautiful project on the river as well. And so we're doing many, many things to increase and provide housing.
And so for the people, let's say somebody who's in their 20s and can't really find housing, is there a source at the county that they can go to? Is a department particularly, or they call 311? I don't know.
Well, we have an Office of Housing Advocacy, the first ever, and they're helping thousands of people on a regular basis. The supply just can't keep up with the demand. So as projects come online, we are helping to get the word out. And a lot of them are along transit lines. So transit-oriented development or communities is a big part of the equation. You see it along US 1. Right? These taller buildings, they're very popular. And most of them have a requirement of some percentage of housing that's more affordable.
Right.
So that's very popular. And we're doing more of that.
Good.
We're very aggressively pursuing those options. And for our younger folks, maybe they don't need a car or they're on a transit line on the Metro Rail. That's very convenient.
Well, now you're speaking my language, because transit and traffic is one thing I wanted to talk to you about. As you know, I'm a member of the CITT, the Citizens Independent Transportation Trust, and so we deal with the transit. We're a advisory board, as I say, or somebody said we're the watchdog, but we're the watchdog on a very short leash, because, as you know, the commission can do whatever they want at the end of the day. But I would like to ask you, and the SMART plan has been great. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of movement. You've got the Northeast Corridor, North Corridor, Transitway is almost finished. So what do you think of the future of transit and transportation in Miami-Dade County? And I guess this will be if and when you win, this will be your last term, or can you get another term?
Well, to answer that first, as mayor, only 2 terms maximum, 2 4-year terms. So if I do win, which I certainly hope to, I'll be able to serve 4 more years.
And so in the 4 years, what would you like to see in transit?
Yes. Yeah. Well, the SMART program, we call it now, because it's no longer a plan. It's being executed.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes. So we actually tomorrow, our Transportation and Public Works Director, Ulyss Cleckley, is on his way to Washington to once again talk about the Northeast Corridor. And we are in the president's proposed budget for the federal share to build that corridor out, which of course connects with Brightline, and we'll have neighborhood commuter stops throughout Northeast. We are conducting the studies for the North Corridor, which will bring us to the Hard Rock Stadium and eventually beyond into Broward. We also are looking at a Flagler bus rapid transit application.
I saw that.
Yes, and you've mentioned the South Dade Transit Corridor. That's a bus rapid transit. It'll be the largest electric bus rapid transit system in the world. So it's a 20-mile corridor. It will be all electric. The stations are almost done. They're beautiful, and they'll be climate controlled. Yep. So we're very hopeful. And look, we are already exceeding pre-pandemic transit rider levels.
Yeah.
So even though people say, people can't use transit here or they won't use transit here, the fact is that more people are using transit. Also, the better bus network, we redesigned the bus routes, has brought more people on because the buses are going more frequently to more places that people want to go, to job centers and other key locales, and more on the weekends that didn't exist previously. So really a much more dependable system. And we're rolling out improvements to it. We already rolled out one set of improvements. We're getting another at a very soon board meeting to approve the next set of improvements. So we're working really hard to be responsive and creative and diversified. We've got Uber vouchers. We've got Cars on Demand. We've got a Metro Connect program, many, many things. Yep. We're even talking to the jitney drivers to be part of the network.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So we're working hard to make transit even more attractive. By the way, one of the best services is using the dedicated lane on the 836. So you could save 20 minutes in traffic riding the bus from the Dolphin Mall Park and Ride, or there's another station west of FIU. And these routes are so popular that an additional bus has been requested.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Fantastic. So, and that brings me to an interesting point, because actually we were talking about it yesterday in where I live, which is Coral Gables. Vision Zero. You're familiar with Vision Zero?
Absolutely.
And here's where it's kind of a question, but also a statement, is where I see the wonderful work's been done on the Metro Rail, the underline. You know, you've got these wonderful stations. You've increased the density around the station, so you've got a bunch of people that go there. But now I don't see what I'd like to see more, and I'd like to ask you about this, because I know in some cases your hands are tied because you're unincorporated Miami-Dade. But more connections, more protected bike lanes, connections to the Metro Rail stations. We were just, and you probably know, I was fortunate to be part of the TPO's Netherlands trip about 2 weeks ago. And we saw that the key thing was connecting to those rail spots, right? And while I think we have a great spine, we kind of need to make those connections. And can you tell me a little bit about that? I know it's not, a lot of it falls in cities and it's not your realm, but I know the county controls a lot of streets.
Well, so you are on the CITT board, Citizen Independent Transportation Trust, and the half penny, which should be a full penny, but you know, that's history. Okay, so half penny. And there are contracts with cities to get their portion of the funding. So when I was a commissioner, it really came to my attention that there was no coordination between what the cities did and what the county did. And in fact, with the Better Bus Network, we were able to talk to a number of the cities for their circulator routes to have them dovetail better, because there were overlapping routes. The apps did not connect, so you couldn't necessarily convert well from a county to a system, a city system. So all those things to be improved. So similarly with the bicycle aspect of it. So something that definitely CITT could really help, how to bring the cities together with the county for overall planning. And we do have a great network of trails, and certainly the underline, everyone sees it coming along. It's beautiful, a great amenity, and not just for recreation, but also commuting. And then we'll have the Ludlam Trail. We have the one that connects the two national parks, Biscayne National.
Greenway?
The Greenway, Everglades Greenway,
right.
The South Dade Trail that also has received funds for improvement down the South Dade Transitway corridor. That's a wonderful route. So, you know, other things that are coming online, but again, you have to get safely to those corridors.
Yeah.
And Vision Zero is about no deaths or serious accidents on the roadways for pedestrians and bicyclists. This is one of those ones where my daughter, who lives in Washington, D.C. and regularly commutes by bicycle and to the bus or the train, says, "Mom, you got to fix it." And of course, we've worked hard on it. We've come up with other ways to have dedicated lanes. There's a lot of conflict between vehicles and pedestrians. And I think my own husband was knocked off his bike, broke his arm, ruined
about
the
3
bike.
years ago, right?
Yes, it was about 3 years ago. He's back. We're back up, you know,
He
bicycling.
broke his arm. I didn't know he broke his arm.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that serious.
So it's, you know, and at the time, the police did not even really inquire of the driver of the car as to their culpability. I was really kind of taken aback by that. And so it led me to create a curriculum. I actually modeled it on Palmetto Bay, which is a component. They have their police department that's a component of Miami-Dade County Police. And they had a really good safety education program, and I brought it to countywide because it's a shared responsibility. And you can just, the share rows, SHARO,
RROWS.
ROWS, which is supposed to educate people to be safe around bicyclists and pedestrians, but really not sufficient. We know that some separation is really, really important.
Yeah.
We have those armadillos, which were, controversial for the speedsters, but really do protect.
Yeah.
They're an important feature. So we've added those. And I think in downtown Miami, we're looking at planters, different things that really call to attention. Even cones.
Yes.
Even cones can make a difference.
Yeah, anything can make a difference. I mean, I saw, streets that were very narrow, but like you said, there's a conflict between people and pedestrians and cyclists. But I think the mentality is more, the car is not there's a person in the car, right? So it's just a mentality. It's just people trying to get through a street.
Well, we know that people are distracted. We have a lot of distraction, the texting while driving, and even though the laws are what they are, they're not that well enforced. And there's a lot more that we can do, and we have received federal dollars to help us with the county's Vision Zero program. In fact, I got a personal call from Secretary Pete Buttigieg to tell me that good news a few months back.
Nice.
That was very exciting. He's been down here quite a bit and visited the port. We've also had Deputy Secretary Trottenberg down for the airport. You haven't mentioned that. Of course, airport, seaport, those are big transportation amenities as well.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And we have probably one of the biggest or most traffic of anywhere, or what number is it right now?
Yeah, so we're the second busiest for international travelers at Miami International Airport. In the world, the latest figure was 10th when you combine cargo and passenger planes. But we have more airlines at Miami International than any other U.S. airport, and we're the fastest growing. So definitely there's some growing pains, and we inherited an airport that needed a lot of tender loving care, which we've dedicated $9 billion worth of tender loving care, and are upgrading those conveyances, elevators, escalators, moving sidewalks, bathrooms. Go check it out. We've got some beautiful new bathrooms.
I was just there.
And we even created the lightning crew, or Team Relampago, to take care of the smaller repairs that are irritants and, help everybody.
Oh, that's great.
Yes, it's wonderful.
Yeah, but you know what? That's interesting, because I've always seen that coming from private sector or nonprofits, you always had a person that would do all the little stuff, right? Like stuff happens all the time, right? So you always something. And when you go to government, it's like, oh, let's put in a work order to GSA to get this little piece of paint painted.
Yes,
right?
That's a good point. And that's why we actually have a team. I think it's 160 people.
That's right. That
are working around the clock to fix tiles, ceiling tiles, lights, what are they called? The edging that might be coming up, or the signage that's fallen down. And recently I was doing a tour, and I go and I take pictures and I point it out. It's been, and it's really making a difference, but also outside the airport, the roadways, and the markings on the street, all of that. So we can give it a good facelift.
Okay. You mentioned a couple of things to cover. I think we're a few more minutes, but I did want to ask, because you mentioned the money. There's a couple changes coming up now. You've got the tax collector and then the sheriff that are their budgets are going or leaving the county's budget, and they're going to be standalone budgets. How's that going to work?
Well, there are 5 constitutional officers, and 3 of them have never been elected before. Well, that's not true. The sheriff 60 years ago was elected, so it's been a long time that the voters of the state voted to require us to move to independently elected. It was not approved by the necessary margin in Miami-Dade, but the rest of the state, in this constitutional amendment, voted, and so we have to do that. So it's the sheriff, the election supervisor, and the tax collector, 3 positions that had been all reporting through the mayor and the administration, and the other 2, the clerk and the property appraiser, had already been elected, but were more integrated. So those 5 offices, and each of them is really freestanding. Like they don't, they're subject to the voters, but they don't have a board of county commissioners. Ultimately, the budgets come through the county, but if there's a dispute, it could be resolved at the state. So we don't know exactly how this will play out from a cost perspective, and we're working on memoranda of understanding and for a transition agreement, hopeful that who's ever elected in November will want to maintain continuity of operations, right? You can't just, you have to be turnkey to keep the business going. So you mentioned the sheriff. Yes, there'll be a sheriff, and these take office in January.
Okay.
After November election. And we're doing everything possible to be ready and anticipate and try to have the budget ready as well. Over time, of course, whoever is in that role will have their own ideas about how to spend the money.
Be interesting. It will be interesting. And I know you've say the things that keep you up at night. Maybe that's how that thing is going to work.
Yeah.
So you're the sheriff now, though.
I am the sheriff.
You carry a gun? Do you have a gun?
No, nobody has asked me that question, and I like to talk about being a sheriff. But no, I don't carry a gun.
I know you don't. You wouldn't.
I don't know how to shoot a gun, to be very frank.
So here's a time. We're almost out of time, but I did one thing I did want to ask you and actually we see it now. I mean, it's a lot of rain now. I mean, a little too much rain, but we got rain. But climate change, sea level rise. What's on the horizon for us? What are we doing? I know there was a wall planned for the seawall, and there's a lot of measures being taken.
Yes. Well, we're at the forefront of climate change, and we're at the forefront of solutions for climate change out of necessity and also inventiveness. And you're referring to something called the Back Bay Study with the Army Corps.
Yes.
And we have more Army Corps projects in Miami-Dade County than any place in the country. They love us here.
Yeah.
So yes, originally they're engineers. They proposed a wall that would save us from storm surge, like you saw with Hurricane Ian in Fort Myers Beach, for example. And we said, not so much. And with the leadership of Secretary Connors, who's at Army Corps now, he was willing to revisit and reset. And so we came together around more nature-based solutions. And there'll be a series of things incorporated, some floodgates and some pumps and some raising of buildings are proposed, but also barrier islands, mangroves, things like that can really stave off
nature-based solutions.
Yeah. This will be finally, as a preliminary plan, signed off on in August, and then we'll go the federal route of seeking money from what's called the WRDA bills. And another good thing about this is that we don't have to wait for the whole plan. We can start spending on pieces of it as we go forward. So these are all meant to make us more resilient. That's really from the water coming from the shore.
Right.
But we also, of course, have rain events and flooding that come from overhead, as well as sea level rise, where we know water also comes up through our porous substrate. And so we're working on all those fronts. And we have to get smart about it. We have to build smarter. We have to prepare, as we did for this rain event. We had all our departments aligned. We've done quite well in Miami-Dade County with the flood, but we have to make sure that our drains are clean, that we're not flooding our sewage system, because sometimes people open up the manhole covers and then that water inundates our sewage system. That leads to sewers system overflow, not good for anybody. And so many things that we're doing to keep us safe.
That's great. Well, you certainly have your hands full.
Yes, sir.
Mayor, it's been a real pleasure talking to you today.
Thank you, Robert.
It's been a long time. It's nice. I was thinking of looking at the picture. We both had black hair.
Indeed.
Yeah. And it's been a while.
But we still ride our bikes.
We do. I rode a lot of bikes in the Netherlands. But
That's great. That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It's been
you
a
for
pleasure.
having me.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.